Chapter 2, Section 2.4. We're going to be covering addition and subtraction of fractions. So we're going to start with adding like fractions. Fractions with the same denominator are known as like fractions. Adding like fractions is easy. You just add the numerator and then you put the common denominator in the bottom. 2 over 7 plus 3 over 7 equals 5 over 7. 5 is the sum of 2 plus 3 and 7 is the common denominator. You can add any number of fractions with the same denominator. When you have mixed numbers, the whole part and the fraction part, you can either change them to improper fractions and add them, or arrange them vertically and add them. So let's start with the first way. Add 2 1/5 plus 3 3/5. So method 1, change both to improper fractions and then add. 2 1/5 equals 11 over 5 and 3 3/5 equals 18 over 5. So we add the numerators and put them over the common denominator. 11 over 5 plus 18 over 5 equals 29 over 5. Now we have to change it back to a mixed number. 29 divided by 5 equals 5 with a remainder of 4. So the answer is 5 4/5. Now method 2, we can arrange the numbers vertically and then add them. So you can see I have arranged them one on top of the other, 2 1/5 over 3 3/5. First, we add the whole numbers. 2 plus 3 equals 5, and we bring the 5 down. Then we add the fractions. 1/5 plus 3/5 equals 4/5, and we bring that down. So the answer is the same, 5 4/5. If the fraction part of the answer has a numerator larger than the denominator, then we need to make the fraction part a mixed number. We have to add the whole part to the whole part of the answer, and then include the fraction part. So for example, if the fraction part was 6 over 5, we would change 6 over 5 to a mixed number. 6 divided by 5 equals 1 with a remainder of 1, resulting in a mixed number of 1 1/5. So we would add the 1 to the whole part of the previous answer and make 1/5 the fraction part of our answer. Now let's talk about something a little more difficult, adding unlike fractions. Fractions with different denominators are called unlike fractions, and you can't add them until you make them fractions with the same denominator by making equivalent fractions. The new denominator is called the least common denominator, or LCD. It is also called sometimes the least common multiple of the original numbers. To find the LCD, you write each denominator as a product of its prime factors, as we did in Chapter 1. Then write each factor the highest number of times it appears in a single denominator, and then multiply these factors together to get the LCD. So here's an example. Find the LCD for the fractions 8 1/8 and 5/12. So looking at the denominators, the prime factors of 8 are 2 times 2 times 2, and the prime factors of 12 are 2 times 2 times 3. The highest number of times 2 appears is 3 in the factors for 8. The highest number of times 3 appears is once in the factor for 12. So now we're going to multiply this out. There are 3 2's and 1 3. 2 times 2 times 2 times 3 equals 24. So the LCD of these two denominators is 24. Sometimes you will need to find an LCD for 3 or more different denominators. The process is the same. Find an LCD for the denominators 12, 15, and 21. Write as a product of primes. The primes for 12 are 2 times 2 times 3, and the primes for 15 are 3 times 5, and the primes for 21 are 3 times 7. Now we have to write a product that is made up of all the different primes, the most number of times they appear in any of the denominators. So the most number of times 2 appears is twice in the primes for 12, so 2 times 2. The next prime we have is 3, and the most number of times it appears is once in any of the primes. And then we have 5 as a prime. The most number of times 5 appears is once. And we also have 7, and the most number of times 7 appears is once. So our product is going to be 2 2's, 1 3, 1 5, 1 7. 2 times 2 times 3 times 5 times 7 which equals 420. So what you'll need to do in order to add or subtract these fractions is you need to make all of the fractions with those denominators into a fraction with 420 as the denominator. So, for instance, if one of the fractions was 3 over 12, then you would multiply that by 35 over 35 because 35 times 12 gives you 420. So your equivalent fraction for 3/12 with the denominator of 420 would be 105 over 420. Here's an application example. The Monterey Canning Company packs 8.5 ounces of tuna into each can. The can itself weighs 1 7/8 ounces. What is the total weight of a can of Monterey tuna? To find the total weight, add the weight of the tuna to the weight of the can. So you're going to add 8.5 to 1 7/8. Both of the fractions must have the same denominator for you to add them. So we have to find the LCD. The primes for 2 are 2 times 1, and the primes for 8 are 2 times 2 times 2. 2 is the only prime, and the most number of times it appears is 3 times. So the LCD is 2 times 2 times 2, which equals 8. So your LCD is 8 in this case. So for the 1 7/8, you don't have to change the denominator. To make an equivalent fraction with the denominator of 8 for 1/2, multiply the top and bottom of 1/2 by 4. 1 over 2 times 4 over 4 equals 4 over 8. Now we can add 8 and 4/8 plus 1 and 7/8, and that equals 9 and 11/8. 11/8 is improper, so we have to change it to a mixed number and add the whole part to 9. 11 over 8 equals 1 and 3/8. Add 9 plus 1 plus 3/8, and that equals 10 and 3/8. Subtraction is the same as addition. You must have the same denominator in order to subtract fractions. To subtract fractions with unlike denominators, first find the LCD, then subtract equivalent fractions with like denominators. Subtract 3/4 minus 1/5. First, find the LCD of 4 and 5. Prime factors for 4 are 2 times 2, and prime factors for 5 are 5 times 1. 2 appears at most 2 times. 5 appears at most 1 time. Remember, you don't have to include the 1. So the LCD is 2 times 5, which equals 20. Now make equivalent fractions with the same denominator. Multiply top and bottom of 3/4 by 5 to get 15 over 20. And multiply the top and bottom of 1/5 by 4 to get 4 over 20. Now subtract fractions with like denominator. 15 over 20 minus 4 over 20 equals 11 over 20. 11 is prime, so this cannot be reduced any further. You can follow the methods in the previous lecture to divide, add, and subtract using your calculator. You will have access to a TI-84 or TI-83 for all homework, tests, and exams.